Will Hunting, a 20-year-old, lives in a poor neighborhood, but works at a prestigious place, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. There's just one catch. He's just a janitor, scrubbing the university halls. One day, while cleaning the corridor, he notices a complex math problem written on the board. He looks at it with curiosity. It was placed there by the local professor, Gerald Lambeau. He promised anyone who could solve the theorem by the end of the semester a publication in the university's journal and his respect.
And the person to do so will not only be in my good graces, but also go on to fame and fortune by having their accomplishment recorded and their name printed in the auspicious MIT Tech.
Anyone interested could approach the board and write down the solution. Will becomes deeply intrigued by this problem. He can't stop thinking about it all day. After all, solving this would allow him to fly to Mars in the future and even grow potatoes there. That evening, at a bar, he becomes so absorbed in the solution that he even leaves his friend and rushes to his shabby little home to spend the night solving the theorem. At home, instead of using a board, he uses the bathroom mirror to conveniently erase wrong solutions. After some time, he succeeds. Over the weekend, he arrives at work, and in between mopping the floors, writes the correct solution on the board. A few days later, the professor finds the anonymous solution on the board. He can't believe that one of his students managed to solve the toughest theorem so quickly, and he's eager to find out who this genius is.
Who did this? Jack?
Wasn't me.
That evening, Will is hanging out with his friends. They pass by a group of people, and one of them insults a girl. Will recognizes this guy from his childhood. He used to bully him. He asks his friend to stop the car and gets out. Without thinking, Hunting punches the guy right in the face, and a fight breaks out between the groups.
Whoa! Cops!
When the cops arrive, Will's friends try to pull him away from the opponent, but it's already too late. Will is arrested. The next morning, Professor Lambeau gives a lecture to a large class.
Well, by no stretch of my imagination do I believe you've all come here to hear me lecture, or rather to ascertain the identity of the mystery math magician.
Everyone's curious about who the genius is who solved the problem, but no one answers.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint my spectators, but...
The professor then decides to give the students an even more complex problem, one that he and his colleagues have been trying to solve for more than 2 years.
And there is a problem on the board right now that took us more than 2 years to prove.
Meanwhile, Will walks out of the police station and tells his friend that he has a court date in a week. In the evening, he heads to his shift and once again sees a simple problem on the board. He starts solving it quickly, trying to finish before anyone notices him. At that moment, the professor walks out of his office.
What are you doing? Sorry. That's people's work. You can't graffiti here. Don't you walk away from me!
Lambeau tries to catch Will, whom he mistakes for a vandal, but Will quickly disappears. The professor then returns to the board and realizes that the correct answer has been written again.
Oh my God.
That evening after work, Hunting heads back to the bar with his friends and tells them that he was fired. Now, he can't attend the university and solve problems.
Why did you get fired, Will? Come on.
Management was restructuring.
The next day, Professor Lambeau decides to track down the mysterious genius. He goes to the janitor's office to find Will.
Yeah, what can I do for you?
I just need the name of the student who works here.
The staff think the professor wants to complain about the cleaning and don't immediately get him Will's name.
Asshole.
But later, they find out that Will didn't work voluntarily. It was community service assigned by the court. Today, Will's hearing is scheduled. The professor enters the courtroom and sees Will defending himself with excellent knowledge of law and sociology.
By the Constitution of the United States, this is the same
Don't tell me
document
about
which
the
guarantees my
Constitution of the
liberty.
United States.
Now, liberty, in case you've forgotten, is the soul's right to breathe.
The judge reads out all his charges. Despite Will's best efforts to defend himself because of the large number of offenses, he's still sent to jail.
You're going in. Motion to dismiss is denied. $50,000 bail.
Thank you.
Sometime later, Will has a visitor. It's Professor Lambeau, who informs him that the judge has agreed to release him on his own recognizance. There are just 2 conditions.
What the fuck do you want?
I'm Gerald Lambeau.
First, Will must meet with the professor every week and study advanced mathematics. Second, he also has to meet with a therapist once a week to work on his criminal tendencies.
And I'm responsible to submit reports on this.
Will is sure that he doesn't need therapy, but he agrees to the deal for his freedom. Will is released from jail and he starts attending sessions with the professor. He solves problems with ease, and Lambeau is impressed. But therapy isn't going as smoothly. The professor has invited different specialists to find one who will work best with Will. The first psychologist freaks out when Will mocks his book, which Will read in a single evening before the session.
Hey, you know something? I can't do this pro bono work anymore. It's not worth it.
The second psychologist takes a more serious approach, using hypnosis to put Will to sleep.
Where is it touching you?
It's touching me down there. Hey, afternoon delight.
But as it turns out, that doesn't work either. Lambeau almost gives up, but then remembers a guy from his dorm who might be able to help Will. His name is Sean McGuire.
Maureen, stop the oral fixation for a moment and join us.
Lambeau walks into Sean's office and tells him about Will's case. He invites him to discuss the details at a restaurant.
Before Nancy died.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was in Paris. It was that damn conference.
I got your card. It was nice.
At first, Sean doesn't want to take Will because of his busy schedule, but the professor convinces him by saying Will is an exceptional case and compares him to a guy from India who, 100 years ago, made significant discoveries without any education.
This Romano, John, his genius was unparalleled, Sean. This boy is just like that.
During the first session, Will acts as usual, making sarcastic remarks and mocking the therapist. However, Sean doesn't fall for his provocations. Even when Will says that the painting the therapist made is complete crap, Sean doesn't lose his cool. Only when Will starts prying into Sean's personal life, mentioning his wife, does Sean finally snap.
If you ever disrespect my wife again, I will end you.
Time's up.
After the session, Professor Lambeau sees that Sean is upset. He tells Sean that he can quit, but the therapist insists on seeing Will again in a week.
Thursday, 4 o'clock. Make sure the kid's here.
After the session, Sean spends a long time thinking about Will's comments about his wife. The loneliness eats at him. Meanwhile, Will goes on a date with a girl named Skylar from the bar. She tells him that she inherited a lot of money from her father and plans to apply to Stanford University. They have a great evening, and at the end, they kiss at a diner. The second therapy session arrives. This time, Sean decides to hold it not in the office, but on a park bench. Will starts his usual sarcastic act, but Sean interrupts him. He tells Will that he's been thinking a lot about his words and now has something to say. In Sean's eyes, Will is still just a little boy who knows nothing about real life. He may learn facts about all the artists in the world, but he's never left Boston and never seen their work in person. He can quote works about war, but he's never been on the battlefield. He can recite sonnets about love, but he's never truly loved or been vulnerable in front of a woman. But the most important thing, Sean himself will never understand the pain of an abandoned orphan until Will opens up to him.
Personally, I don't give a shit about all that, because you know what? I can't learn anything from you. I can't read in some fucking book.
During the next session, Will stays quiet the entire time. Sean remains calm, confident that Will is just testing him, and he's right. During the next session, Will finally breaks the silence and tells Sean a dirty joke. They start talking about relationships with girls, and Will casually mentions that he went on a date recently. Sean asks if he plans to see Skylar again, and Will makes an unexpected confession. He admits that he doesn't want to ruin the perfect image of her that he has in his head.
This girl's like fucking perfect right now. I don't want to ruin that.
Sean argues that Will is afraid of ruining his own perfect image, not hers. But that's what real relationships are about, Sean says. He shares a personal story about his wife, who recently passed away from cancer. He tells Will about the funny little quirks she had. Those things are what he misses the most. True intimacy comes from accepting each other's imperfections. In order to know if you've made the right choice, you need very close relationships. For the first time, Will listens. He visits Skylar in the dorm. She's surprised to see him since he hasn't called in a while, but agrees to go out with him.
All right,
But then maybe some other time.
like tomorrow?
Yeah, all right.
They go to the dog races and have a great time. Skylar asks Will where he grew up and how. Will says he's from Boston, but lies about his family. He invents a wild story about having 12 older brothers.
8? How many?
I have 12 big brothers.
You do not
I
have
swear
12
to God, I
brothers.
swear to God. I'm lucky 13 right here.
Even worse, he has to promise Skylar that he'll introduce her to his family soon. The next day they meet again, and Skylar asks Will, when did he realize that his wife was the one? Sean says he knew from the first moment he saw her. He tells Will the story of how he once scored tickets to a rare baseball game, but didn't go because he met a beautiful girl at a bar instead.
I sure as hell don't regret missing the damn game.
Skylar keeps insisting that Will introduce her to his real family, but he still refuses to tell the truth. So, he decides to at least introduce her to his friends, including Chuck. Surprisingly, Skylar fits right into their group, joking and drinking beer with everyone. But at the end of the evening, Chuck ruins Will's mood.
Oh, not tonight.
Oh, no, not tonight. Not any other night, hon. He knows once you see that little shithole, he's getting dropped like a bad habit.
Later, Professor Lambeau meets with Sean at a diner to check on Will's progress in therapy. He's not really interested in Will's relationship with his past. What he's really curious about is what Will's plans are now that he's under his mentorship. Sean responds that he's not going to force Will into anything. He has to choose what he wants from life. Professor Lambeau gets angry and says he's already introduced Will to the right people.
Let's talk about the boy. Why don't we give him time to figure out what he wants?
But he doesn't know that Chuck went to meet those people instead of Will, asking for payment and ruining the deal with his inappropriate behavior.
You can speak with my aforementioned attorney. Good day, gentlemen. And until that day comes, keep your ear to the grindstone.
Meanwhile, Will enjoys a night out with Skylar. Then, at her place, she unexpectedly throws him off guard by asking him to come with her to California, where she plans to attend Stanford. Will immediately refuses, making up a ton of excuses. But Skylar insists. She's convinced that Will is just stuck in his little world, where he has no competition and is scared of the new. Then, Will blows up. He's sure Skylar is just playing with him, that he'll always be just a fling to her because he's poor.
Why are you saying this? What is your obsession with this money?
Skylar tells him that if she had to choose between having a living father and his inheritance, she'd definitely choose the father. She's scared too, but she wants to be honest with Will, while he isn't. Will protests, but then Skylar remembers his non-existent brothers. At this point, Will completely loses control. He starts yelling, saying that Skylar would never want to know the truth about him. After all, he's an orphan, and people tortured him as a kid. Skylar, in tears, reassures him that she would want to know everything about him, including the most painful details. And then, she confesses she loves him, but Will's heart is already closed.
I don't love you.
Will meets with Professor Lambeau. He's upset about what happened at the meeting with the business partners and scolds Will for his recklessness. Will explodes. He says he's not sure he even wants this academic career anymore. Communicating with the professor is like torture, because his mind is far sharper than Lambeau's. Lambeau says he expected at least some gratitude from Will. They argue, and Will leaves. Later, he's invited to an interview at the National Security Agency, where they promise him a golden career. Will refuses the offer, saying he doesn't want to ruin the lives of regular people just for some political ambitions.
Oh, come on. I mean, that is what you do. You guys handle 80% of the intelligence workload. You're 7 times the size of the CIA.
He soon meets with Sean again. Sean asks why Will turned down the NSA job. Will responds,
So what did I think? I'm holding out for something better.
The therapist asks if Will has any friends he can talk to, and if he ever feels lonely. Will lists famous philosophers like Kant and Nietzsche, and Sean reminds him that real relationships can only be built with living people. Sean asks why Will chose the most prestigious college to work at, but when he was writing on the board, he was hiding. When Will is asked what he really wants from life, he starts spouting nonsense about how he wouldn't mind laying bricks or being a shepherd for the rest of his life. Sean understands that Will is just mocking him and doesn't want to be honest with himself. He kicks Will out of his office.
But I ask you a very simple question, and you can't give me a straight answer.
Will is confused, wondering why he's being kicked out. Sean explains that Will is not sincere with him and calls him a shepherd.
Where's your soulmate? You want to talk about soulmates? Where is she?
Dead.
Time passes. Will calls Skylar, but she's given up waiting for him to make any serious decisions.
I love you.
Take care.
After this conversation, Skylar finally leaves for California. Will stays in Boston, working construction with Chuck. Meanwhile, Professor Lambeau talks on the phone, saying that Will's not keeping his promise and that he'll send him back to jail.
Well, if he doesn't show up and I file a report saying he wasn't here and he goes back to jail, it won't be on my conscience.
During break, Chuck asks Will what he plans to do next. Will answers that he doesn't plan to spend his life solving stupid equations and being a lab rat.
Probably make some nice bank, though. I'm gonna be a fucking lab rat. Better than this shit.
He plans to stay in Boston and party with his best friend forever. But unexpectedly, Chuck doesn't like this plan. He openly tells Will that he's being a moron by throwing away his talent. Chuck admits that every day he dreams of showing up at Will's house before work and seeing his friend finally leave that hole. Meanwhile, Lambeau finds out that Will has stopped attending therapy sessions with Sean. The professor threatens to tell the judge and accuses the therapist of pushing Will toward a life of juvenile crime.
I don't care if you have a few laughs, even at my expense, but don't you dare undermine what I'm trying to do here.
Sean responds that the professor doesn't care about Will's feelings and that he's been alone his entire life, never learning to accept love. But Lambeau doesn't listen. He's paranoid now, convinced that Sean is just getting back at him for his successes. The therapist can't believe his ears. This self-satisfied idiot really thinks Sean is jealous of him.
You think I'm a failure. I know who I am, and I'm proud of what I do.
Sean says that he's only concerned about Will's destiny and his true desires, which Lambeau could easily crush and make Will feel like a failure.
I can come back.
Now come in. I was just leaving.
Lambeau quietly leaves, leaving Will alone with the therapist. Sean explains to Will that his fight with Lambeau isn't personal. They have a long history together.
A lot of that stuff goes back a long way between me and him.
Changing the subject, the therapist mentions that he's prepared a report about Will for the judge. Will asks if there have been others like him in Sean's practice. Suddenly, Will learns that Sean's background is similar to his own. His father was an alcoholic who used to beat him. Sean repeats to Will that he's not responsible for what happened to him. Will tries to brag about it at first, but then he breaks down and lets his emotions out. Everything starts falling into place. Soon, Will comes to his final session with Sean. He tells the therapist that he decided to work at one of the companies recommended by the professor and that he's happy with his choice. Sean responds that he's decided to travel a bit and leaves his number for Will. Later that evening, Will goes out with his friends to celebrate his birthday. They give him a car they built from used parts. Before leaving, Professor Lambeau visits Sean. They apologize to each other and decide to grab a drink at a bar. Meanwhile, Chuck, as usual, drives up to Will's place and finds that his friend is gone. Chuck is thrilled, just like in his old dreams. Will leaves a note for Sean in the mailbox. The therapist opens it and learns that Will quit his job at the company and left for California to be with Skylar. In the note, he uses the same phrase that Sean used when telling his friends he skipped a baseball game to meet his future wife. This retelling is dedicated to Robin Williams.